So, hello everyone, I'm Dan, and today, there we go, I'm going to be talking about the digital divide. More specifically, I'll be talking about primary education in the UK and how technology features in this space. So just to start, I know you're all probably very warm after that last exercise. I'd like to play a little game, and don't worry, you can stay seated. You just need to raise your hand. So I'm going to show some technologies that I used when I was at school, and if you used them too, please raise your hand. Very simple. So let's start. Cassette player. Yeah, quite a popular one. And I'm sure if you used a cassette player, this image is probably burned into your memory. Pain, right? Moving on. We have the overhead projector with those floppy see-through pieces of paper you had to balance on the top. Lovely. This scene is probably quite popular with most of you, the old Friday afternoon television share. And lastly, the personal computer, maybe for some of the younger people in the room. So, education has always been intertwined with technology. Even 20 years ago in the USA, 99% of schools had access to a computer, and 84% of these had one or more computers in their classrooms. So now that I've talked a little bit about the old technology, I'd like to move on to the education side. So education is important. We should all know this. It helps us learn languages, helps us solve problems, and helps us understand things on a deeper level. Additionally, through education, we can go on to get jobs, and probably most importantly, we can get paid. So, education is really, really important, and it impacts us throughout our entire educational career. Studies have shown that success in primary school leads to higher grades in secondary school. And children who have higher grades in secondary school are more likely to go on to higher education and university. And given this, it's really important that we ensure that primary school is the first step in a series of events that allow children to go on to achieve their goals. So, as you may have heard in the introduction, my mother works in a school, and we talked at great lengths about the problems that happen there, just day to day. But she helped me decide what I'm going to focus on today. So, what I did when I was talking to her, I was thinking, what was school like, remembering the cassette players, the overhead projectors, all of that fun stuff. And I realised it's actually been a very long time since I was at school. For most of you in the room, it's probably been even longer than that. So you know what I did? I went back to school. I travelled back to my hometown and visited the Hermitage School, where I attended as a child. I walked through the corridors, went to my old classroom, and felt like a giant, because everything's tiny. I mean, look at those chairs. And the reason for my visit was firstly, a little bit of nostalgia, but also, I wanted to talk to the teachers and find out their issues in their day-to-day life. So I talked to three people. I talked to Matt, talked to Tara, and to Adam. And as you can see, Matt here is talking about how marking takes a long time. He said for 28 books, it takes about an hour and a half to get through all that marking. And if you have 5 or 6 classes a day, that quickly multiplies into a lot of time spent. Tara here says preparing the materials for lessons takes too long. So getting the material and getting it in a digestible format for the children before the lesson, very, very time consuming. And lastly, Adam. He said that the assessment of children is often not effective. So the things that they're tested on and the things that they learn often don't align properly. So I did some research, and I wanted to have a look at some of the ways that these problems could be solved using technology. So starting with some simple ones, I thought we could use apps in the classroom more. If we could test children using apps, their answers would either be right or wrong, and they could be recorded and sent to the teacher in a dashboard similar to this one. The teacher could then monitor what activities the children are succeeding in and which ones they're struggling with, and then alter the lessons following in order to amend this. Furthermore, we could look at creating some sort of template structure for lesson planning. If we can create a shared pool of resources that teachers can use, potentially even across schools, then we can have a drag and drop feature where you can just grab previous resources and drop them into pre-made templates, saving hours and hours on the planning time that goes into lessons. But these aren't very fancy, and this is obviously about technology, so I wanted to look at the cutting edge. What's going on? What could we see in the future? So this is what I found. So, as you may or may not know, there are popular games like Minecraft, which allow the gamification of learning to go further than ever before. So children can log on to their own virtual world, and it's been adapted to host parts of the curriculum. That's amazing. And it's a game they're familiar with, they might play it at home, so this really engages them in new ways. Next up, we have wearable technology, such as the Google Glass shown here. Other examples have been mentioned previously are smartwatches, and maybe even GoPros. So this puts the student in direct contact with the information, and there's no barriers there. And it also allows them to be creative. Another thing is virtual classrooms. This is something we kind of take for granted here with conference calls, but imagine learning across a conference call while you're in school. Your teacher doesn't have to be in the same room, same building, not even the same country. And lastly, robot teachers. Crazy, I know, but some schools around the world are already testing these out. And I read some research in The Telegraph that said that as soon as 10 years from now, we could be seeing these teachers replace real human beings. That's absolutely crazy. Technology's come so far. Getting nostalgic about these things, right? And now, starting to think about this. Absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. And when you think about this, it's very easy to look at the picture of robots and get caught up in that. Maybe the Google Glass, oh, you see new information. But there's something in the UK education system that's much more difficult to talk about. When I read this headline, my stomach dropped. It says, poorer pupils won't catch up for 50 years. This graph shows a study which was made by the Department for Education and the BBC. And this graph shows that poorer children are on average 3 grades behind their classmates. It has been improving slowly over the last 5 years, granted, but at the current rate of projection, we're looking at 2070 being the point in time when children are on level pegging with their classmates. That's 50 years. And, as mentioned earlier, this won't just affect them while they're at primary school, but could have long-lasting impacts into the later stages of their education, as they may repeatedly miss out on opportunities to go into higher education or university. Additionally, think of an area where there's a large percentage of poorer children. These schools won't be able to equip their students with the skills they need to succeed as they go through their education. So, obviously, there must be some hope here. That's quite heavy. But I don't think that the gimmicky solutions that I mentioned earlier are going to cut it. I think what we need to do is divide this problem into 2 parts. Firstly, look at the problem within the schools. If we can take a deeper look at those problems that the teachers face day to day and form cheap, simple solutions that solve these, then we can free up much more of their time that they can spend on those struggling children. Those children at risk of falling behind will get the extra attention that they need because the teachers have much more free time due to our technology. But there's also a second aspect that I'd like to talk you through. And this is more of a social problem. Right now, we have apps that can help track spending. This will help the families with the poorer children track where their money's going. They get rewards for saving a certain percentage of their paycheck every month. I'm sure most of you are familiar with these apps. As a student, it's quite a useful tool as well. But this helps put families on the right track when it comes to saving money. And additionally, an example I found is Career One Stop. This operates in the United States, but I'm sure we have alternatives here. It offers free resources for unemployed people so that they can get back into work as quickly as possible and start earning money to provide for their families. It will rank your skills and convert that into one of over 900 job opportunities, depending on where your skills lie. So, is digital making the world a better place? Of course it is. We've seen amazing advancements in technology in the classroom in the last 20 years since some of us were at school. But there is still a way to go, and we need to take action. We need to do something about it. What are we going to do? We have a real opportunity as a company that supplies to the public sector, to start changing people's thinking and bringing more attention to the digital divide. If we can enable the teachers to save more time and look at the bigger social problem, we can start to make real change. Jeremy. So, when we're pitching and delivering solutions to clients, we need to make sure that these solutions go beneath the surface and tackle, firstly, the real persisting problems, and secondly, that look at the digital divide. And by doing this, then we can ensure that technology is both a force for good, but also a force for change. Thank you.